Peace, everybody. Welcome to Capital Combat. The name says it all. I'm Hakeem Branch.
Rob Jarrell.
And today, after a long hiatus, we are back. And we have an explosive pay-per-view matchup to talk about. We're going to be talking about Gervonta Tank Davis versus Rolando Romero, who are fighting at the 135-pound division for the WBO or the WBA?
No, that's the WBA regular belt.
Yeah, whatever. Kambosos is the champ for all the belts. So money is involved. Yeah, exactly. We're not gonna get into all of that. A lot of life been happening with both of us. So we, have not been able to do a video in a while, but we're glad to be back. Maybe, I've been thinking about doing a video kind of chronicling what's been happening in the last few months with us, because it's been pretty eventful. But as most Americans know, COVID was involved. But let's go ahead and talk about the fight. So go ahead, Rob. Just give them a preview of the fighters and what we're looking into.
Okay, so this is an interesting fight between Gervonta Tank Davis and Rolando Romero, because they've been jawing back and forth for the better part of a year or more. And we're actually supposed to fight each other, if I'm not mistaken, back in December. But Romero got caught up in some domestic violence shenanigans.
Legal issues. Yeah,
legal issues, which, if I'm not mistaken, he was, I won't say found innocent, but I think they chose not to indict or whatever that. We're not going to get into that. That's not our place. We're not law professionals. Yeah. But he's got past that, and Gervonta Davis faced Isaac Pitbull Cruz in a very tough 12-round, 135-pound matchup. And that's probably, I'm not going to say the worst that Gervonta Davis has looked, but that has probably been the most competitive fight that he's been in. A guy that is pretty squat. One of the few guys he's been taller than and literally bigger than maybe since Yuriorkis Gamboa, and even that they were a little bit more equal in size. So it was a very interesting fight. But in this one, he's fighting a guy in Romero who I think he's been tested, but he hasn't been tested with the big name. His best fight to date was against Anthony Yiga out of Sweden, which he did win
by knockout.
In
seventh round
knockout. And then he faced a couple of guys who I think were either undefeated or one loss against Avery Sparrow and Jackson Marinez. But if you go back and really watch his fights, he really hasn't looked like he's been truly pushed. I think Marinez was the only one that he looked like he was pushing. Even that one was against a guy who only had like 7 knockouts. So there was no real danger per se of being knocked out, just possibly made to look bad. But he did get the 12-round unanimous decision. And I'm not sure what to make of Romero. He's a guy, again, guys who are fast track 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, under 15 fights, and they're fighting for a belt. They usually have shown such immense talent or has had some extensive amateur background and has looked impressive. And they fought very, very, very wily veterans, ex-champions, other highly touted prospects. And I really can't say that about Romero. I said, the best 2 guys he's fought was Jackson Marinez out of the DR and Anthony Yiga, who has had questionable competition, except when they stepped up and they lost in those fights.
Yeah. So one of the things about Romero, he was actually a judo practitioner up until I think he was about 17, and then he switched over to boxing. So he gets a lot of comparisons from things that I've watched and read to Deontay Wilder, because Wilder didn't start fighting until I think he was like 19 or so. He was a basketball player, switched over to boxing, and they don't have that amateur polish that you were talking about. So when you look at Romero when he fights, he has a very awkward style. He has a lot of perceived openings that you see. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Deontay Wilder. A lot of people saw like, oh, you know, this guy is unpolished. He doesn't throw his punches the textbook way. Same thing with Romero. He loads that hook from Mississippi every time he throws it. Same thing, like all of his punches are really wide, telegraphed looking, and effective.
Yeah.
As seen from his 12 knockouts and his 14 wins. However, you see like when he's throwing and when his elbows are flared out, his stance is a little wider than it needs to be. His feet sometimes seem to be stuck in mud, but none of that has mattered up to this point. The real thing is, can Tank Davis make those awkward, seen as deficiencies, actual deficiencies? It took somebody like Tyson Fury, who is arguably the best heavyweight of this generation, to make Deontay Wilder really, to really take out Deontay Wilder. Because like we've seen him outboxed in stretches, we've seen him hit, we've seen him hurt, but he always ended up with the knockout. So Romero was in that fight with Yiggett was kind of back and forth. And, Rolly was able to knock him out. It was very awkward. A lot of like head clashes, clinches, awkward exchanges, but he got the job done. So can Tank punch in between those wide hooks? Can he catch him with a straight when he's trying to throw that wild uppercut that he winds up really, really far? Or because of all the trash talk and all of the, the animosity, all of the, outside stuff with the promoter and all of that, does he rush in to try to knock him out and get clipped himself? Davis is he's the more technically sound guy. He had the amateur background. He has the more polished team. Well, he has a more polished coach and style, and he has power as well. So it's really a toss-up as far as like, this is really one of those who lands the cleaner punch first and who has the better beard type of fight, which is something the casual fan is going to love. So if you're just coming across this and you casually watch fights every now and then, you should watch this fight.
So what I'm noticing, and while you were speaking, I was going through the box rec for Rolly Romero, and there's one thing that I've noticed, and which is why I'm not too confident in Romero in this particular fight. Again, starting late is not an issue. It's really how you're trained and how you brought up. We know for someone like Deontay Wilder, if I'm not mistaken, he only really had about 10 amateur fights. That's not enough fights for someone to really get all the nuances, at least on an amateur level, that it takes.
He did make the Olympic team.
He did make the Olympic team, and that's when it seemed like the division was bereft of great prospects. There were some prospects, but great ones, especially in the U.S.
Yeah, that was during the decline of American boxing.
Right, and the same could be said about Rolly Romero, but this is when I think talking yourself into a fight has really has reared its head, because what I've noticed, if you look at his record, he has fought guys who have been pillow fisted. They don't have a lot of knockouts, and I'm not saying
you mean Romero
20 fights with 12 or 13 knockouts. I'm talking about fighting a guy that has 26 fights, 26 or 19 wins and 7 knockouts, or 26 fights and 11 knockouts, where their knockout percentage is extremely low. And there are some solid punchers that don't have high knockout percentages. Look at Tim Bradley. He goes to the body, you can hear it. but and he'll get your attention. He just doesn't have. They just don't have the knockout percentages. This one is like, you might be setting this guy up for failure because if you don't know truly what his chin is, if you don't know what it truly means to have to be hurt or be buzzed and have to fight out of that or use those nuances. So it seems like he's been a bit protected to work on those deficiencies, those nuances, whatever it takes to fight at a super high level. The kid is athletic. He's powerful. He has decent range. And like Wilder, and I think this is one of the things that a lot of people overlook, he is improving from the Marinez fight to the Sparrow fight. Again, that could be him not being worried about the power. Same with the Yiggit fight. I've seen him. He still has a wide stance, and I expect him to have that versus a guy that's either taller than him or that's a southpaw, because they're trying to establish that reach since their lead hand is very close to each other. But the hook
Romero's jab is slow as all get out, though.
And he pushes his jab. He doesn't snap his jab. He reaches with his jab as well. He doesn't step into it. He doesn't have his foot on the outside. There's a lot of deficiencies, and I'm wondering, against it already being difficult fighting a guy like Gervonta Davis, who is very sharp, very powerful, very explosive, and probably has much greater one punch speed, and he can throw punches and bunches if he wants to. Yeah. And I just think that that Romero is going to have his chin tested, if not broken, because there's been too many instances where he's reaching with the right hand and his chin is in the air.
Yeah. And that comes from that lack of amateur seasoning. And also, like you said, fighting fighters who won't make him pay for it. He's going to pay in this fight. Unless, like I said, he catches Tank early, he's going to get punished.
Now, I will say this, and I don't think Romero's going to do this. He is the naturally bigger fighter, and I'm talking about height-wise, weight-wise. He's a solid kid. He's a muscular kid. He seems to be pretty strong, but can he do what Pitbull Cruz did and kind of just get in his chest, kind of rough him up, and then make him pay with, a punch here or there? Because I think that's the only time I've actually seen Davis like really go through sustained trouble. Even the Mario Barrios fight, that's a guy who had been fighting forever, and he made him pay. He punished Davis where he could, but he just didn't have that firepower.
Yeah, that was crazy because Barrios actually has a pretty good record knockout wise as well.
But Davis has a very underrated chin as well too.
Yeah. When you were talking about the strength and everything, I think Romero has it. Being a judoka, you usually have immense power. I mean, I know, all martial arts are a lot of technique, but like usually like you can use that technique, but with the grappling arts, these guys are strong because you got to hold people down. You got to, get a hold of them. And you don't do that in boxing, but like in the clinch, I would expect Romero to be stronger.
Oh, yeah. And again, you can't throw your opponent around, but you can throw him around. You can move him. You can place him. You can put him in position. You can put him up against the ropes. And these are things, even though he's taller, I think he would have a better understanding of leverage. At least the opponent around there. Can he punch off that leverage? Can he move Tank Davis to a position where he can, dig to the body and maybe, well, you can't really hold their fist, but just make sure keep them in place, that kind of thing. It's interesting, but this isn't kickboxing. This isn't Muay Thai. This isn't UFC or any other mixed martial arts promotion. So
Yeah.
it's
I
not
don't think he does have that. Like the way he's been fighting up to this point, he likes to have that space. And, he's not that like Bernard Hopkins, Andre Ward, John Ruiz, Ricky Hatton type of fighter that's gonna get in there and make it ugly and murky. He's really trying to be pretty and flashy. And it's not coming out the way he wants it to, as far as the way it looks aesthetically, but it is in victories. Now, we both pretty much said all that and have pretty much laid out that we do think that Davis is going to win this fight. How many rounds do you think it's going to go?
I will be surprised if it goes 9 rounds.
I was going to say 8.
Yeah, no more than likely 8, no more than 9. I just think it's just one of those situations where this is such a huge jump in competition, and considering how deep 130 to 140 is, I mean, you have to see Kambosos, you got to see Ennis, you have to see
Ennis is at 47.
He's at 40. Not Ennis, Haney.
Yeah.
Haney. You still have not Mario Barrios, who actually he might have already outgrown 135 and 140.
Well, I think he's been at 40 his whole career, so I think he might go up to 47.
Okay, so I mean Isaac Cruz. What's my guy to Ukraine?
Lomachenko.
Lomachenko. It's just way too much talent sitting at those 2 weights, and I can see him moving up to 140, but there's some killers at 140 as well. So this is such a huge step up that this will either teach him a lot about the sweet science and really allow him to learn, or it's going to break him, because Gervonta Davis is no joke. Now, here's the kicker, and it's, again, the one thing I've noticed, especially with guys like Romero and Wilder, is that as a fight goes on, granted, they don't have the best jab. They telegraph their punches. They may load up. Their timing gets better and better the more a fight goes. A punch that you don't think that Deontay Wilder is going to land, or you think is just a little too far, or he knows how to step into that 1-2, and it always gets closer, or he might shake you with a hook that, as ugly as it may be, is still there. And I think that's the same with Romero. His timing as a fight goes on, as long as he's not being hurt. And again, he hasn't really fought enough guys to really test his chin. Whereas, and I know we keep comparing him to Wilder, Wilder has actually had some very tough fights where he's been hurt.
Yeah.
And he's fought out of it, or he's weathered the storm and kept fighting. You saw the fights that he did lose, they literally had to put him down and out for him to not fight at all.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. Is Romero going to improve and get his timing down? Because he has a decent looking check hook. It's pretty quick. And he will throw very good looping shots to the body. I'm actually looking for a left hook to the body on Davis if he can get in close. But if he's just gonna out there,
and that's gonna be the power hand because he's southpaw.
Right. So if he's gonna be reaching and coming down to Davis's level, and not bringing his fist back to defend, then 8-9 rounds at best. And it's probably going to be a spectacular knockout.
Yeah. Romero saying he knocks out Davis in the first round. I don't see that happening at all. That would be an immense upset. Really, this honestly, like in the landscape of boxing and things like that, this fight does nothing for Tank Davis. I I think he did this to get out of his contract with Mayweather Promotions. But, you know, to speculate all that stuff is just gossip. So we got Davis within 8 rounds. And that's pretty much the long and short of it, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
We said all that to say 8 rounds.
Yeah. So thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed the conversation we had here. If you did, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you have not done so yet. You can hit us up on all our social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Capital of Combat. And we will watch the fight, see if we're right or wrong, and then we'll do a recap either way. So stay tuned for that. And thank you all for watching. Hope to see you in the next video. Hope that you all drop some comments so we can, you know, talk some boxing. And until then, we'll catch you in the next video. Fight on.
This is round 1 and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is coming and gone. My fists are on fire. I perform till I perspire. My demons are in a rage. Keep thinking that it's a game. I kick rhyme, hurricane. I told them I don't play. I'm liquid.
Black Street Fighter.